That's what it says. Are we going to do that? I'm going to be getting on that plane right there. Joe Biden, I'm hands-on. A better tattoo artist. And welcome to a special edition of the Marty Heiser Show. You know, this attack of this wonderful actor, Mr. Caller, do you have something? Good evening and welcome to a special edition of the Marty Heiser Show. We have an incredible opportunity tonight because the Republican Party in Connecticut is going to be holding an election for their chairman. And the four gentlemen we have tonight are going to be discussing some of the issues facing the party, facing the state as a whole. It seems like every week something new happens. 2 weeks ago, United Technology decided they were merging with another company, and guess where they were going to move their headquarters? Well, it wasn't going to be Connecticut. Some of the top-level jobs are leaving, along with GE, along with Aetna. Aetna's been in this state for 124 years. Connecticut is one of 3 states that's actually losing population. There's a roaring economy everywhere, but what's happening in Connecticut? I'll tell you what is happening. We have one party in Hartford that controls everything. The Republican Party right now is a bit at a low ebb. I know firsthand. I, too, was an elected official in Connecticut. No longer. I'm calling it my wilderness years. But tonight we're going to meet 4 candidates that are going to be vying for leadership within the Republican Party. And they have an opportunity to share their vision, what's going to happen with the party, and how we can become relevant once again in the Nutmeg State. I thank each one of these guys for coming in tonight. There's a live call-in at 203-438-2003. If you'd like to join the conversation and have a question, don't hesitate to. But let me just quickly introduce. We have Dick Foley. Thank you so much for coming in. We have Matt O'Brien. Appreciate you coming. You've been on the show before. We have Dave Mathis, and we have J.R. Romano, who is currently the chairman of the Republican Party here in Connecticut. I want to thank you gentlemen all. And as we arranged beforehand, each of you will have a 2-minute open, a 2-minute close, and then we'll have some questions. And we'll start with you, Dick.
Well, thank you, Marty. It's a pleasure to be here. You know, again, we've been doing this for a few years now, you and I. My name is Dick Foley. At one time, I was the chair of the Republican Party in Connecticut, served in the legislature. I've stayed involved and active in campaigns across the state and in other states also. My takeaway from last November is that the Republican Party needs some change, and needs some change pretty quickly, and in some cases maybe even a little bit drastically. It's just that I'm not saying anything bad about any particular person. It's just that I think it's time for a different direction and get back to winning elections again. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt?
Good evening. Thank you so much, Marty, for having us tonight. My name is Matt O'Brien. I'm the Coventry Republican Town Committee Chairman. I am a financial advisor, and I'm a political activist. I'm running in this election because I've been watching from the ground what's been happening over the past few years, which culminated in 2018 with huge losses across the state. I'm really concerned about the party in general. In particular, we're losing donors. We need to bring donors back into the fold by creating a strategy that will work and bringing in additional voters. We are lacking in voter outreach programs that will help our RTCs in every town succeed. There's a lot to accomplish, and I think we can get it done.
Thank you. Dave?
Hi, I'm Dave Mathis. I'm running because of the condition of our state and our party, as Marty outlined in the beginning. I'm originally from Salisbury in the northwest corner, had a home in Westbrook near Old Saybrook for 16 years, and recently moved to Darien. The reason I'm running is because the economic condition of the state is only going to get better. We're only going to become a pro-growth state by electing far more Republicans. Not a few more Republicans, but far more Republicans. The only way that's going to happen is we're going to need a lot of things to happen. One of them is the state Republican Party has to become a much stronger organization. It is a weak, underfunded organization at this point, and that has to change. We need to implement a major improvement in our ground game that has to be always on every quarter, every year. We have to do more polling. We have to do much better outreach to the cities and urban areas. We need to integrate with RTCs more, and we need to do a whole host of other things. All of that requires additional funding. Currently, the donors are generally not supporting the state Republican Party, the major donors, and that has to change. My background is as an innovator, an accomplished lawyer, partner in one of the largest firms in the country, and as an innovator. I've also been a leader of a Republican organization with national reach in New York, the Union League Club, and I led the resurgence of that club, both from the standpoint of being the focal point for Republicans nationwide to come to speak, interacted with many of the Republican leaders in the country, and also a resurgence in membership, facilities, et cetera. I have a track record of complex projects, implementation, and strategic planning at many institutions. I have the skill sets for this job, and it's an urgent task. Thank you.
Thank you. JR?
Hello, everyone. My name is J.R. Romano. I'm currently the State Republican Party chairman. I've had the pleasure and joy of representing the party, and I understand the frustration and anger and how everyone across the state of Connecticut feels. I think the difficulty and the task in front of us, because of how close we were, what everyone forgets in 2016, with President Trump, and thank God he is the president right now, was on the ballot. We won. We tied in the Senate. We made gains in the House to the point where we were this close to taking those majorities. And based on a lot of circumstances in 2018, it was very disappointing on election night. What I can tell you is that we have done a full post-op analysis, a 25-page report, which was given to the State Central Committee in a direction that I plan on taking this party. I'm honored to be here, and I cannot wait to have an open and honest discussion about where the party is and the direction we should go.
Thank you very much. We have questions that have come in. They're already lining up on the telephones. We have Andy Wainwright and Dave Straight, two concerned Republicans that have been in the state for a while. And Andy, why don't we start with you?
Thank you, Marty. I have two questions. I'll start with the first, of course. And my objective with these questions is to give our committee members and the audience watching just a chance to get to know the candidates a little bit and a little more about them. But I wanted to bring up the last election cycle. At the beginning of that season, the Stanford Republican Town Committee had a Lincoln Day event, and Chris Healy was our former chairman, Chris Healy, was the keynote speaker. And in his address, he described the task in front of us as storming the walls of Jericho with every man, woman, and child. In that spirit, I believe it's important for the committee to know what each of you did to personally help the GOP last year in this state. Please let us know specifically if you contributed money to the party, to candidate Bob Stefanowski, to Matt Quarry, who was our Senate candidate, and your congressional candidate.
Okay, we'll start with Dick Foley and move down that way. Dick?
Sure. I gave money to the state party. I bought a ticket to the Bush Dinner. And in addition, I gave back Quarry money. I gave Bob Stefanowski a check. And that's just something I normally do with candidates at all levels. I gave a number of other candidates checks also who were running for other offices, and I just like to support our people.
All right, Matt?
So I supported our candidates in a number of different ways. I did donate the most money to our local legislators like Tim Ackert, Dan Champagne. These guys were working so hard. We were out there knocking on doors, In addition to the money that I've donated, I've worked very hard for the Steve Obsitnik campaign. That was a door-to-door ground operation. I produced videos for a number of candidates. I worked for Jamie Stevenson. So I've definitely made my mark around the state with a number of different candidates. When it comes to our congressional candidate in the 2nd District, he actually dropped out because of lack of support from the party in particular, which was another thing that really caught my attention and got me concerned about where we're headed and the things that we need to do to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Matt, I'm sorry, Dave?
Yeah, so for the last election cycle, when we moved to Darien, I started a group called Imagine Connecticut with Steve Obsitnik, and that was intended to increase discussion about becoming a growth state again. Specifically last year, I gave to quite a few candidates and met with many of the gubernatorial candidates. And then when Bob Stefanowski won the primary, I gave him a check that night or the next day for $1,000. And then Bob called me the Sunday before the election, and I gave Bob another $1,000 3 days before the election. I had been a contributor of $5,000 a year to the state party until JR was named the chairman. JR did not call me for a year, and by that time I gave him a smaller check a year later when we finally met, because at that point I did not like the direction the state party chairman was taking the party.
JR?
Well, first of all, I want to thank everyone for what they did in 2018. It's almost an unfair question because as the party chairman, you're in connection with so many campaigns. I personally did give to several candidates. Bob Stefanowski, I personally raised $12,000 for Matt Corey. One of the things that I did as party chairman, which no party chairman in the country does, is I turn our entire House donor file over to our candidates so the candidates can, in fact, reach all of our donors. So, it's a little bit of an unfair question for me because of how connected and tied to I am. But one of the things that I will point out, and sometimes, and David actually just highlighted it, is major donors can be very finicky. If they don't get what they want, they tend to sit on the sidelines. And so it's a balancing act, and I'm very proud of the fact that we brought activist and small dollar donors into the conversation so that we can offset when a major donor may have a problem or strife. Like right now, we have a major donor that's refusing to give because he's pro-toll, and he wants the Republican Party to change the stance on being pro-toll. So that's one of the difficulties of managing the party.
Any rebuttals? Any follow-ups?
Yeah, I think it's important to note that the entire major donor base, according to the filings through April 30th, is effectively not donating. So it's not just one or two, quote, finicky donors. We have the GOP donor base in this state in terms of people who contribute the larger sums. The smaller sums are critical, no question about it, but you have to have the larger sums. And we only have 4 people in the entire state, according to the filings, contributing $10,000 or more since January 1st through April 30 filings.
So in response to that, the max donation for many of these donors are in fact $10,000. And some of the conversations were strategic because right after a loss, you can't go to a major donor and say, can you give me more in January? You have to allow a little time to spread out. We now are re-engaging with major donors. I think in this month we're going to do about $30,000, which I'm very proud of. So I understand from the filing perspective, but there are some strategic conversations when it comes to how we raise money from those major donors.
Andy, you have a
Sure,
follow-up?
I do have a quick follow-up on that discussion. Mr. Mathis, your last major donation to the party was $5,000 in 2014. So that's been quite a long time. Before that, you were donating regularly. I have your campaign. Your campaign for some reason sent me a document that showed a contribution to Donald Trump in 2016. It would be President-elect Donald Trump. It was late November when you sent me that. I have a question specifically. So that the fact that your campaign sent me something, I wanted to ask you
I
about.
think there was some question about that because of the vehicle that the Trump transition team used to raise money.
asked my question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
My question, I was looking at some of your donations. There was a donation, there's a long gap from 2014. in the presidential 2016, I see 2 donations, one to Jeb Bush, big donation to Jeb Bush, and then that's self-explanatory. There was a donation to an outfit called Right to Rise for $5,000. I think the committee members in the audience should, what is Right to Rise?
So I contributed to 2 presidential candidates substantially early in the cycle. One was Governor Christie of the state of New Jersey, and the other was Jeb Bush of the state of Florida. Right to Rise is either a Christie vehicle or it's a Jeb Bush vehicle. I can't remember which one, but those were the 2 presidential candidates that I supported, and I was proud to support them early in the cycle. And that was frankly before everyone realized that Donald Trump was actually going to stay in the race and win the race. So I'm proud of having supported both of them. Right to Rise was clearly either a Christie or a Bush vehicle. I can't remember which. I'd have to look.
Okay, so
what happened to that money?
Which money?
The Right to Rise money? Did that help support candidate Trump?
I'm sorry, you're asking me about the money that the Jeb Bush or Chris Christie presidential campaign raised and how they used the money. I think they used the money to support the presidential campaigns of the appropriate candidate. I don't think the Bush and Christie campaign were using the money to support President Trump or candidate Trump, but you'd have to ask them. I don't know.
Well, once he was a candidate.
Along
I
the
have no
lines
idea.
of this, we had a viewer write in some questions. Here's a question. Given the strong anti-Trump sentiment in Connecticut, to say nothing of the same feelings in New York and Massachusetts, what would your intentions be to position the GOP in Connecticut to either A, take pro-Trump position, or B, move away from Trump in 2020? And then the follow-up to that is, given that you have selected a position on going forward, how do you intend to attract candidates that are supportive of your choice? We'll start with you, let's start with JR, and we'll come this way. What do you do with the elephant in the room, so to speak?
Well, listen, I think Donald Trump has been a tremendous benefit to the country as a whole, our economy. I mean, it speaks for itself. Public policy, I think how some would think it's unorthodox, but I think he's doing what he needs to do to lead the country. I was one of the first party chairmen in the country in 2016 to be asked to join the joint presidential fundraising committee. I'm very proud of that fact. At the end of the day, he's the top of the ticket. He's our president, and he's leading this country. And there may be candidates out there that may disagree. The beauty of the Republican Party is we are a big tent party, but this state party, as long as I am chairman, will support the president.
Okay, we'll come down this way. What do you
Yeah, I
propose?
mean, first of all, I donated $5,000 to President Trump's transition at the first major fundraiser he had as president-elect in late November, early December, after he was elected. President Trump is the Republican president. He will be our nominee. He is highly likely to win based on a booming economy. I think that no question about that. I think the booming economy will sit well with Connecticut residents, even though we're growing slower than most of the rest of the country. That's a separate issue, and that's not his fault. That's Hartford's fault. But I think that we can, I think most of the attention of Connecticut voters next year needs to be on the problems of Connecticut. And there's a big food fight going on in Washington right now, and I think hopefully we can turn the attention to the severe problems Connecticut has and not be distracted by the typical wars in Washington that are going on, because we have serious problems here we have to confront.
All right, Matt?
So first of all, I'm a big supporter of President Trump, always have been, supported him through the primaries, worked on, helped the campaign by door knocking as well as putting out signs and things like that. It's very easy for Connecticut residents, I think, to blame the president for things that are happening in Connecticut right now. They don't understand, a lot of people around the state don't understand that the rest of the country is exploding. The economy is fantastic. There's hope all across the country, and everyone's moving forward without us. I would love to see, Connecticut doing much better than it is, and I think we can learn a lot from what the president's been able to accomplish, as well as the National Party's support of the policies that the president has implemented.
Yeah, I too agree that the president will be reelected. I'm not, perhaps not quite as bullish as some of my colleagues here, but I think in the end of the day, he will be reelected, and the economy will be the reason. He's done a good job, and he has earned reelection. Connecticut, there is a division, and there are a number of Republicans who don't care for the president. We mourn their loss, but we understand that any president is not going to please everybody. In terms of other candidates that are running, and in the process, I do a lot of candidate recruitment. That's one of the things that I do. That I will tell you that I tell candidates to just simply state how they feel. If they disagree with the president on an issue, they can say that. If they agree, they can say that too. And a candidate has got to be their own person, and a candidate has got to be genuine and real and tell voters what they think.
You know, I think it's, I don't know if this isn't your daddy's Republican Party, but you know, when I look at Fairfield County and some of these wealthier counties, it used to be wall-to-wall Republican. I mean, John Fry, he'll deny it, but he told me 25 years ago when I was running for the Board of Finance, he said, if your name was Donald Duck and you're the endorsed Republican candidate, you're going to get elected. And boy, that ship has sailed. And when I look at the results from 2016, Fairfield County went for Hillary.
But there's a reason for that, Marty.
Why?
Well. So let's start with post 9/11. Since 9/11, a huge number of folks from New York State have moved into Fairfield County. They have decided that it's better for their families, it's better for their lives, it's safer for a whole host of reasons. When a person moves, they change their address, but they don't necessarily change their philosophy. You can see this in other places. In Massachusetts, a whole host of people moved out of Massachusetts in those bad old Taxachusetts days, and they moved to southern New Hampshire. And now New Hampshire has become more democratic because those people stayed with their own politics. So we shouldn't be surprised with it. It's called demographics, and you just got to pay attention to it.
Okay, but as a Republican Party in Connecticut, what's the response? Do we just reflect their political views in hopes of winning them over, or do we realize we have to, you know, take a different approach?
We realize we have to take a different approach, and the different approach has to be that there are issues that people are always in transition on issues. For example, right now, a lot of those folks who move to places like Wilton, for example, or Darien or Greenwich, were very one of the reasons they went to those towns was because of these very strong public school systems they had. When Governor Lamont talked about merging those school systems together,
regionalization.
Everybody seemed to get awfully excited awfully quick.
Yeah.
The same thing regarding tolls. Okay, so you pay attention to the demographics and the shifting sands of politics.
All right, JR?
Well, so a couple things is I agree with almost everything Dick says. That part of 2018 was that you had a group, particularly in wealthier towns, it wasn't just Fairfield County, but all across little pockets of the state, Madison, Glastonbury, where you had voters who, and the term that I always use, could afford to be offended by Donald Trump, and they cast their ballot against Republicans. And to me, it was an act of indulgence, not paying attention to anything that was happening in the Connecticut economy, and where there was, I think, something missed for us, and I'm proud of this fact as a party. We've identified on issues that are local now, the tolls and the forced regionalization, about 130,000 voters in Fairfield County who are anti-toll and who are against forced regionalization. That data now sits with us to be utilized in 2020 for any Democrat that voted for those things. So those are the types of things where you have to find and create those opportunities for the party to pounce.
So you think, so what happened was the first time the voters had a chance to vote against what happened in Washington in 2016, it was a vote against that, and that's what the wave was.
I don't. Well, he might believe that. I don't believe that.
All right.
What I believe is this transition has been going on for a long time. Look, there's a little town just south of here called Reading. Nice little Republican town, has been for 100 years. I say 100, and maybe it's 150. And in 2004, post 9/11. The little town of Reading, which is Republican by registration, voted for John Kerry. It was sort of the first break. It was the canary in the coal mine, but that's where you could and I mean, we haven't had a Republican state rep. I don't believe in state rep in Westport in probably 14 years. So there are these signs do pop up. That's why you got to be paying attention to them. You learn things.
Speaking of Reading, the last Republican standing in Reading with his "Don't Tread on Me" flag waving in his front yard is Dave Straight, the one overdressed questioner in this august body. Dave, you have a thought?
Yeah, I think you guys, whoever ends up with this position, has a huge task, and that is to provide vision. I think when you focus on vision, money will come. So, you know, when you look at Connecticut today, we have $128 billion of unfunded liabilities. My focus is on specifics. I want to try and avoid vague ambiguities and really see who has a vision, because you guys are going to provide the vision for the state. So with $128 billion in unfunded liabilities, I mean, we got in this mess because of the unions, right? There's a reason there are no federal unions. Frankly, I think there should be no state unions. Don't you guys think that we need a Wisconsin moment where we walk away from collective bargaining and address these unfunded liabilities that are all to the unions?
Why don't we start with you, JR?
Yes. I mean, that's the simplest way I can say it. I think ultimately what's happening within the state, and you're seeing it in blue-collar communities that are trapped here, and ultimately, right now, the Connecticut Democratic Party is basically a subsidiary of the unions. Whatever the unions want, the Connecticut Democrats give them. And we have been very successful in winning over blue-collar communities, the Route 8 corridor out in eastern Connecticut. And what we have to do is get better at communicating a message in how those policies in Hartford are impacting single moms in Meriden and in Derby, and explaining those to some of the areas that Dick had mentioned earlier, Reading and Westport, about how voting for Democrats are negatively impacting the lives of the people that need the most help. And I think that's one of the things as a message we have to get better at communicating how much we care about a single mom in Meriden or a single mom in Norwich or those struggling families. Our policies are better for them. We have to explain that better.
Yeah, there's no question we desperately need a Wisconsin moment, and Governor Walker deserves a lot of credit for that. Our legislature is a subsidiary of the public sector unions. I can't blame them for being good negotiators. I blame our representatives for not negotiating for all the people in the state. We do need a vision. Our vision needs to be a pro-growth state. It isn't just the unions, though. We are a very anti-business state in terms of regulation, in terms of taxes, and of course, our legislature that has been under Democratic control for 22 straight years is to blame for that. And we have the opportunity to bring growth back to Connecticut. We still have a lot of our natural advantages, location, universities, and many other advantages. If we just get out of the way and make this a pro-business, less of a regulatory, anti-business state, money would flood into Connecticut.
Matt, do you have something to...
So I definitely agree with JR and Dave. The unions are a huge problem in Connecticut. The Democrat Party uses the unions as its strong arm, you know, on the ground. And I would love to see a Republican Party that can counter that directly. You know, we need to start forming groups of volunteers statewide. My plan would be by Senate district of high-energy volunteers that can go out and go where we need them. You know, the Democrats are united in every front that they come up against, and they go where they're told to go. They all get on the same page, on the same agenda, and we have nothing to counter that right now.
Well, I might as well be the skunk at the garden party. It doesn't bother me too much. First of all, the term union, even in the question, our problem is not union. Our problem may be public employee unions, but our problem is not union per se. That's number one. And
I agree.
And number two, that when the gentleman asked this question, he has a little preamble about the $128 billion in unfunded liabilities that the state has. And that may be true too. But if you look at the federal deficit, when they don't have unions, it seems like there's a lot more money on the red ink on the federal side than there is on the state side, and they don't have unions. So I'm not sure it's an apples-apples comparison. The part of our natural base are cops, firemen, corrections officers, in some cases DEP field employees, and we have work to do there.
All right, Dave, follow up?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe one of the biggest problems that we have in Connecticut with the Republican Party is that Republicans tend not to go out and vote quite the same way that Democrats do. And I think Tony Boucher learned the hard way that you can't run on a
Hold on one
platform
second.
that, hey, I'm the most liberal Republican you're going to get. I think Trump won because he provided a vision. It was bold, didn't always conform, but people believed it was a change in a good direction. So when you look at Connecticut right now, Forbes rates us number 33 in terms of best states for business. In terms of the economy, we're rated number 49, cost of living 48, cost of doing business 47, cost of infrastructure 42. I think you're kind of getting the point here. Let me flip the page. And then when you go to ranking by measures, taxation regulation 45th, living environment ranked 34th.
You're kind of bumming me out here.
Well,
you really are.
only New
We're
York.
going to the bar afterwards, but I
Dude, you're killing my rhythm here.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, New York and New Jersey are the only two that are in our rearview mirror. I guess we can feel good about that. The way you help moms struggling, the way you help single parents, all the rest, is you get them jobs. In the last 10 years, I can't remember one major corporation that said, hey, we're moving to Connecticut and we love the idea.
Okay.
What are you going to do to invite corporations in Connecticut? We got to get business here.
Dave, we'll start with you and then we'll loop around.
That's why we need a stronger Republican Party, because we have to elect more Republicans. You're not going to address the issues that were just raised without changing the anti-business regulatory tax environment. I mean, you literally have a U.S. senator that all he knows how to do is sue corporations. Okay, we have a big billboard up there saying don't come to Connecticut right now to businesses. We have to flip that around, and the only way that's going to happen is to elect a lot more Republicans and have a consistent message from the state chairman's office and from the state party about a job growth agenda that's going to help everyone in the cities, in the rural areas, and the suburban areas. You drive around our small cities in this state, it is heartbreaking to see Winsted and Norwich and these other cities that were once so vibrant. If we could change our state into a pro-growth state again, that would change relatively quickly.
Yeah, go right ahead.
All right. I think we're all going to agree on this one. We're not going to see any change until we get more Republicans elected. The Democrats have a completely different agenda than Republicans do. They are looking at social issues and driving up the welfare system and instituting things like FMLA. These are entirely anti-business policies that are driving businesses away. They're leaving Connecticut. I'm driving through the state and I'm seeing manufacturing plants abandoned because they can't even sell their buildings. So we're not going to see any changes until this party, gets its act together and steps up and helps elect more Republicans.
I agree. We're all going to suggest that more jobs and more Republicans are good things. We also believe that more jobs and more Republicans mean less taxes because there's more people paying those taxes. We have other problems that other states don't. We have a huge brownfield problem in Connecticut. And that's one of those reasons you see abandoned buildings, is because they're sitting on contaminated sites. And that's one of the reasons why people go to a Florida or Texas, because they can buy a site that's clean and they don't have to worry about environmental cleanups. So is it a hard problem? It's hard, and it's long to solve. It's not an easy problem.
All right, Jeff.
So the thing I'm going to say is, and I think we're all going to agree, the only thing that I want to highlight is, I think one of the differences, the major differences, and I think it's a strength and a weakness of the Republican Party, we are people who hold our integrity very personally. We're prideful, and we are individuals at our core.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing.
It's hurting cats.
That's the downside of it. I think as a party we have to stop letting purity stand in the way of unity and focus on the 80% where we agree, not the 20% we disagree. Because when we're fighting for electoral victories where our margins are less than 2%, when you're looking at this purity test that some Republicans tend to hold on to, that could mean the difference between tolls and no tolls. So as a party, we have to come together and talk about the 80 and focus on that 80% we agree, not the 20% we disagree.
Okay, by the way, the phone number here is 438-2003. We have Will Duff on the phone, who helped put this together and including Anna Lisa Stravato as well. So thank you for both of those. But Will, do you have a question for this august body of gentlemen wanting to help?
Yes, I do, sir. Well, first I want to state the Republican Party in Connecticut has a choice between diamonds and gold. It's going to be a tough decision on Tuesday, and one thing I want to know before I vote on Tuesday is what each candidate is going to do to increase the ground game for our candidates in the next upcoming election. I'd love to. You guys are very well versed, as if you're running for state office or federal office, but you're becoming the chairman of the Republican Party in Connecticut. You're going to be supporting those who are running for office. And I kind of want to hear more about what you're going to do on the back end, getting those troops onto the street, knocking on doors, making phone calls, because that's really where we got beat this year.
All right, great. Matt, we'll start with you, and then we'll circle around. Go right ahead. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Great question. I don't see it as the back end. I see it as the front end. I think the ground game is the most important aspect of a campaign. When we're so divided as a state, and we're only an RTC here and a group over here in this town, we're not talking to each other. So that's the first thing we need to do, is we need to start forming regional groups of chairmen and campaign managers that all get together and share ideas. I will say that JR has been doing a good job with training programs, but I think regionally we need to really unite together and start to share ideas and decide what's working and not working. The other aspect would be, like I was talking about before, a regional system by senatorial district, where we would have a group of volunteers that reports to the 2 state central members in each district, and really builds a strong ground game for statewide candidates or candidates that are taking part in special elections, because the Democrats have that system in place and we don't.
Dick?
Well, the ground game entails a lot of things. And one thing that it entails is, for example, absentee ballots. And there have been plenty of estimates that I've seen from registrars and other folks who are political activists in the state that perhaps 100,000 people, Republicans, did not cast ballots last November. Now, we lost that race by about 40,000 votes. So basically, if we turned out our vote, we would probably have a very different situations than we do today. And perhaps a whole different cast of characters sitting here. But the simple fact is that that's part of a ground game. I think it starts with town committee folks, and it goes on quickly to other activists, whether it be anti-tax activists, perhaps some social issues, depending on the candidate and the part of the state. And that's where you get your people from, and those are people who have always been motivated.
All right. JR?
So part of what we've been doing since January has, to Matt's point, and I appreciate the compliment, Matt, is doing these trainings, trying to change cultures within local RTCs and the value of the work that they do, and how important it is to the candidates. For example, in a lot of towns, they'll start their grassroots operations way too late. We're encouraging and training RTCs to start a year in advance. One of the other things that we're going to be launching is a strictly volunteer social media page, where it's people that are dedicated to actually helping, not us emailing out people saying, will you show up? people that have already committed to the party that will descend on communities that need them. So that is something that will be coming forward from the state party is legitimately a way for volunteers around the state to communicate with each other and when they need each other. But we're going to closely monitor that because it's not going to be a public page where people can communicate and fight over things. It's simply so that we can have a task force that deploys from one town to another or on a need-based level.
We need to share people because there's not enough of us, for sure.
Yeah, so I agree with much of what's been said about the ground game here, but right now we have a small ground game, and the ground game is not every quarter of every year. That has to change. We have to scale this up significantly. We have to provide paid canvassers in a number of areas where there aren't enough Republican volunteers at all times. This is an area where we're too small scale, and it's going to take additional funding to do this. We can raise the money with a clear plan that the donors will support, but you got to do this every quarter of every year. You can't just do it in the election year. It is a very large task, but it is the ground game that is absolutely critical. Also, the information assets that we need to build. I think our information systems need to be brought to a different level, leveraging, of course, off what we get from other Republican databases. But I think we need to build information assets here in the state party that are stronger and a bigger weapon and asset for our candidates, our RTCs, and other Republican organizations.
Okay, we're kind of in the lightning round. This is a live cable access show, so anyone can call in. Caller, do you have a quick question?
Marty, I have a yes or no question I'd like to ask your panel, and here it is. If there was a plan where child care would cost no more than 7% of your income, and 95% of the student debt in the country would be eliminated, and it wouldn't cost the working class people a penny, is that a plan they would vote for? Yes or no?
Okay, so we have a Bernie supporter calling in who claims that rainbows are going to start flying out of our arses because they'll be elected. So, yes or no?
I want my unicorn.
You?
No, thank you.
We're not the legislature. We're running for state party chairman.
All right, here's a good question that was texted in. If not, and we'll do this quick answers because we want to get your closing too. If not successful in winning the chairman race, how do you intend on staying involved with the GOP? What role do you see yourself playing in the GOP? I mean, like, Jody Rell hightailed it out of here. Dave Walker, I saw a picture of his moving van on Facebook.
Yep.
I mean, what the hell? I'm here to stay. I want to save this state, and I want someone, in the foxhole too. We'll start with you, and we'll go to JR and circle back.
If Dave Walker had asked, I would have helped him pack.
Ouch, JR.
Well, honestly, whatever the chairman would need, I would support. It's really that simple. I mean, my family's here. My mother is still in the home in Derby, Connecticut. So for most of my friends and family, they can't leave the state like many of the people in the wealth areas of Fairfield County. So I'm the type of person, whatever is necessary to do the job, I'm going to do the job.
We've been in Salisbury since the 1920s, and that's not going to change. And I've been involved in Republican politics in one way or another since college, and that's not going to change.
I grew up in politics. My dad has been a town councilman since I was born in my town, and I love it. I'm never going to not be in politics and involved. I could see myself continuing to be a chairman in Coventry and continuing to support and help our Republican candidates in any way I can.
Yeah, yes. After I left the chairmanship back in the 90s, I've stayed involved the whole time, recruiting candidates, running campaigns, and going through the entire process. And so that's like everybody else. That's not going to change. I think clearly the four of us would agree that the four of us are in it for the long haul.
Sometimes I think the Republican Party is a bit of a circular firing squad. Everyone's got their guy, and if they don't get the nomination, they take their ball and bat and go home and pout. I wanted Bowden to run for governor, but when he didn't get the nomination, I looked at this Bob. Stefanowski seems like a good guy. Did everything I could for him, and I think we got to do that. The Democrats sure as hell do.
Well, the problem, and I think everyone here would agree, isn't the candidates. Mark Boughton supported Bob Stefanowski. It's actually the supporters tend to be a little bit more visceral and
get the heck
slower to
over
come
it.
around. But that's what I talk about. We have to focus on what's really in front of us, which is the possibility of Democrats winning elections. I mean, it's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, and we agree on 80%. Low taxes, pro-business. These are things that you want.
But you have an entry-level problem. The entry-level problem is that there are 200,000 more Democrats than there are Republicans. So for us to win, we must put almost all of our folks on one boat. We must then get maybe 10% of the Democrats, and we probably got to get half of the unaffiliates. That's our method.
We got 2/3 of the unaffiliated vote last election. The state is with us.
Andy.
All right, I got one more for you guys. As a candidate for president, Donald Trump single-handedly took on and beat the GOP, the Democrat, and the media establishments. As a president, he's challenged with great success prevailing thought on matters of international trade, military alliance, our military alliances,
Question for the candidate.
criminal justice, and among other things.
Okay.
If you're elected chairman, is the example of challenging prevailing thought within our own party something that you think would serve us well? And specifically, the idea of a Connecticut or a Yankee Republican, does that idea need to be challenged or changed?
Matt, why don't we start with you, and then we'll circle around.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of a Connecticut Republican. I would love to be able to define what a Republican is in Connecticut. I've been proposing something like a platform. When I say platform, I'm not talking about specific policy decisions and ideas. I'm talking about general ideas that I think we can all agree on: personal liberty, personal responsibility, fiscal conservatism, and go from there. But I don't really like. It's almost an insult, I think, when someone refers to someone else as a Connecticut Republican.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm a Connecticut Republican. I'm not insulted at all. The simple fact is that candidates will make decisions. Candidates will support policies. Candidates, when they get elected, vote for things, and that's what the system is. That's the same system the Democrats have, by the way.
Vote for what, though?
Well, they vote for what they believe their constituents want them, where they want them to go. That's what they do. They respond to constituents. And if I will tell you, if it's a Connecticut Republican, they're going to respond more to you than what's a Connecticut Democrat.
So just by region, just by living in Connecticut, you mean?
Yeah, no, I don't mean much by region. I mean by virtue of the fact that they understand that you and they have certain common bonds, that you have come to them. That might have been your candidate for Congress, and you've supported them, or you mentioned you went through earlier your litany of candidates that you supported this past year, and you go to those people and say, I need you to help me. I have an issue.
Well, I think the gist of the question is, and Andy, I love to challenge what the conventional wisdom is and the conventional thought. I'm one of the few chairmen. I think I was the first in the country to have a digital director, which was solely focused on creating videos and memes and being clever online. But in terms of the construct of a Connecticut, I'm just a Republican. I would agree with Matt. I think that's what that unifying tag is. I mean, I remember in college, I decided, I played football at Trinity College, and I remember saying to myself, okay, I'm going to do a historical research on both parties and then decide which team I belong to. And what shocked me was just how terrible the Democrats were historically. Well, I don't know why anyone would want to be a Democrat, but that in that moment, and what I learned about the history of the Republican Party, the core tenets of Abraham Lincoln's platform are still true today. And I think those are the types of things that should unite us and keep our party stronger.
Yeah, I would agree that there are certain basic principles going back to Lincoln and Reagan that unite Republicans nationwide. I think President Trump was elected as a change agent on purpose. People knew he was a business executive, had developed a worldwide brand. They wanted someone different. So parties evolve, though, and they always do, and that's how they survive. Our founders created a federal system. We have 50 different states. We have 50 different state parties. They all unite in a national party on certain principles. But of course, there are going to be some differences between Alabama and Washington State and Connecticut. Connecticut Republicans, if that means you're a resident of Connecticut and a Republican, fine. If it means you're, somehow it's different from somewhere else, the point is, if we unite behind certain basic principles that have led this party to success for 160 years, we'll be in good shape.
Okay, we have one final caller. Quick question, quick answer, so we can get to the closing. Go ahead, caller.
Hi, I've heard a lot about candidate recruitment during the debates, and I was just wondering what your pitch to those candidates would be.
Excellent. In one sentence or less, what's your pitch to candidates wanting to get elected? We'll start with you and go down the line. Real quick, because we got to get you close.
Have your voice heard, run for office.
You ready to save the state?
Yes, we need all the great people in this state, the best talent we can, to run for office and put themselves forward like I am.
This state, this country needs you.
Very good. JR, as we decided beforehand, if you have your 2-minute close, and then we'll go right down the line. And thank you all for participating.
So, first of all, I want to thank everyone. I've had the honor and privilege of serving as the party chairman, putting hundreds of thousands of miles on my car from stakeouts in Ledyard, Connecticut, to lobster events, the lobster event in Bethel. It's really been an honor and privilege to serve. What I have to say, in 2016, everyone thought that was going to be a terrible year in Connecticut for Republican Party. But the state party was prepared. I'm a chairman that has navigated this difficult water that will be the 2020 election, where I think we are primed to make gains in 2020 based on the fact that 22 races were decided by 2 percentage points or less. We had 8 recounts. This was not a blue wave. In 2004, the Democratic Party, I should say the Republican Party, went to 36 members of the General Assembly. The losses were painful. But I am the only one here that has the experience of navigating a difficult environment in regards to what has happened on the federal level, and helping our state and local candidates also navigate those waters so that we will be successful again in 2020.
Thank you very much. Dave?
So, unfortunately, this isn't horseshoes. We have not held the legislature, either body, fully in 22 years. It's been 13 years since we won a gubernatorial election. The problem wasn't just 2018. In 2017, 2 years ago, we lost 13 net municipal seats. Last year, we lost key seats, 4 to 5 key seats in the Senate, and then about 11 seats in the House. We have to make changes. We are out of time, folks. We can't wait 2 more years. We have to make the structural changes and scale up the Republican Party to meet the challenges of the Democratic machine in this state. If we don't, this story is going to continue the way it has been. I can deliver those changes. I have turned around organizations before. I can inspire the troops with the help of everyone here and everyone in the RTCs, but we can't wait any longer. We can't just say and make excuses. If we had a bigger ground game last year and the year before, a lot of those close races we would have won. We didn't have the ground game we needed. We didn't have enough funding. We didn't have the organizational skills at the top in order to make this happen. We have to do that. We have to do it both ground game, information resources, and other things we need to do to make a stronger party. I look forward to delivering that as chairman of the party if elected.
Thank you. Matt?
We are at a critical time with the Republican Party in Connecticut. Like Dave just said, we've been losing. It wasn't just 2018. I was on the ground in 2017 with Bill Cabral in Stratford. There was no one on the ground there. They told me the state party was making robodials, and he lost. I was there on the ground with a number of candidates. Bob Margolis in West Hartford, no one on the ground. The state party needs to step up and develop an organization that can fill in these gaps. We're outfunded by the Democrats. We were outfunded by $4.8 million in the last election. This stuff is not acceptable. We didn't run candidates in 27 House seats and 2 Senate seats, 29 candidates that Republicans didn't run at all. Unacceptable. And State Central and the chairman has to take a central role in filling the gaps in and finding candidates, doing good candidate recruitment, finding people that work well together and that can go where they're needed, and I can do it. I'm a ground guy. I've been working on numerous campaigns across the state. I understand what's needed. And we're not ever going to have the same amount of money as the Democrats have because of the union machine behind them. We have to find dedicated people. The most dedicated people understand what's at stake, and they will come out with the right chairman, with the right message, with the right inspiration, because we're losing too many people across the state. We cannot continue on the path that we're on because we will continue to lose. And I don't want to see us lose anymore.
Thank you. Dick?
Yes, some of these problems are under the realm of the state chairman, and some of them aren't. Clearly, the House and Senate Republican committees want to run and recruit their own people and run those campaigns, and some are better than others, and some are successful and some aren't. But the one area that the state chairman does have purview over are the federal candidates, the candidates for Congress. And when you're running candidates for Congress and you're recruiting people, knowing that they're going to raise $0 and 0 cents, knowing that they're not even going to fly a good flag, that they're never even going to put up an effort, that to the extent that the state party itself does not even put a nickel into those campaigns to help those woe-begone candidates, that we have to ask a question of why that is, and should it be that way? And I will tell you, it should not be that way. I will tell you, we can do better than that. I will tell you, I have done better than that in my entire career, and I'm not about to stop now.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. I think here in Connecticut, like all these candidates have said, I'm here to stay. I'm not going anywhere. I've been to Florida.
Can't sell your house either, huh?
Yeah, I can't sell my house either, so I'm making a virtue out of a necessity. So we're stuck here. My wife and I actually break up furniture and put it in the fireplace to heat it during the winter months. And I chase her around, but that's a whole nother story. But no, we're here to stay, and I love this state. I'm impressed with each one of these gentlemen. I think the state does have a bright future, but we do need to turn things around. I mean, I just appeal to my federal or my other nutmeg residents to just say, I mean, is it really a healthy thing to have this state run completely by the Democratic Party? Is it really a good thing? Are they going to be putting in these tolls? Is it the canary in the coal mine like you were talking about when you see all these corporations, good corporations, GE, Aetna, and now United Technologies, looking around and saying, no, there's no future here in Connecticut. You know, you have kids, they get married. Are they settling in Connecticut? Can they make a living here? Can you see your grandkids here in Connecticut? Your house, the one biggest investment that you have in your life, is it going up? Is it furnishing that nest egg that you were hoping for? These are all telltale signs that all is not right. And if nothing else, I think the founders of our country put together divided government, checks and balances. In this state, there aren't any. It's run by the government-controlled unions, and it's not healthy and it's not good. So I appreciate you, these gentlemen coming out. I appreciate the Republican Party in Connecticut. I'm hoping for better days ahead, and it's going to come down to you. So thank you for watching this special edition of the Marty Heiser program, and we'll see you next week when, I don't know, we'll look at cat videos, something not as exciting. Good night.